Thank you so much. First of all, apologies, I don't really have a presentation. I've been busy with too many things, so sorry, that's a huge lapse on my part, but I'll try to dramatize whatever I'd want to present on those slides there. Very interestingly, I just, rather than, speak about issues, I'd like to discuss how do we solve a problem. And because we're speaking about Mumbai and we have elections around the corner, so there's a lot of coverage about city issues and things like that. First, I'll just present a few stats before you. Mumbai's budget, forgive me. I just hope there's no MNS activist around at least. Mumbai's budget is 23,000 crore rupees, which roughly translates into 20,000 rupees per capita, given the 1.5 crore population we have. 20,000 rupees is spent per person, irrespective of whether he pays taxes or not. There are 1,950 kilometers of road in Mumbai, and we have a budget of approximately 4,000 crore rupees. Simple maths will say you that, you'll reach the conclusion that 50 lakh rupees is spent per kilometer of road. 50 lakh rupees per kilometer per year. Third, there was the brilliant presentation about municipal schools and etc. And all right. Do you know how much the BMC spends per student, per academic year in Mumbai? Simple question. Have you ever thought about it? Figures? Come on. Okay, I'm not all that old. I'm 24. The guy sitting there, Mr. Karthik, was my professor. I'm proud to address something where he's invited me. So, come on, figures. Come on, yaar. I don't think I'm that boring. Sorry? 2,000 crores. 2,000 rupees. Okay, 2,000 rupees. Can I hear any other thing? He says 2,000 rupees. You think it's just 2,000 rupees? Sorry? Manjeet madam says 25,000. Do you know the amount of money spent? It's 40,000 rupees per student per academic year. So now these are facts. How do you go about solving a problem? Because I'm concerned with how problems are. Per student per academic year. Per academic year. This is the amount of money pumped into the system per student. This is apart from endowments and salaries of teachers and etc. That's not even being counted. Absolutely. And that's my point. So we know there are problems around. Now how do we solve this problem? And let's actually look at this issue. We have activism all around the place, and how do we solve a problem typically? In India, if you move around the place, say you're walking around the road, you see a poor person on the street. What would you do? Somebody just mentioned in the previous presentation there are so many NGOs. What does an NGO do? What they do is great. And in many instances, it's important. Otherwise, things would just rapidly deteriorate. But my fundamental issue is, what does an NGO do? An NGO essentially does something that the government has failed to do. Let's understand that. Let's understand the limitations of an NGO. So as young people, when we are sitting here, I don't really want to speak about the problems we face. I want to just run you through, give you a glimpse of the kind of limitations we face into doing something and how best can we overcome that limitation. So first, and the best thing, you move around the place, you see something, okay, there's an NGO doing, say, feeding kids or, taking care of animals on the road or whatever. To each his own, that's all right. But how many NGOs can you put together? And how many NGOs, when they come together, can substitute the government? So fundamentally, we need to realize that as NGOs, there's only this much that we can do. It is at best firefighting. That firefighting is important. When we look at the poor around the place, when we look at human trafficking, when we look at HIV instances, that firefighting is important. But that is not the solution. That is a temporary solution. We need to understand that. If we are just going to be happy by seeing some results around the place. You know, you just feed the beggar and the beggar is happy. Great, it's a very tangible response to what you're doing and you feel very happy about it, and you know, you feel that you've done your bit. Maybe you've done your bit, but that's not enough. And hence, my fundamental issue is when we speak about activism, when we speak about problems around the place, 90% of our problems are simply because the government has failed to do what it is supposed to do. Without getting into government jargon, without getting into all the other technicalities, politics and essentially governance is simple, it's not complicated. And the fundamental of all of this is we pay taxes, we need to get something in return. That's all. We pay taxes, we need to get something in return. And if we don't get something in return, there is a problem there. So this is the sort of a broad background around the place. Now, typically speaking, you know, as young people, you meet a lot of young people in colleges. I was myself in Xavier's. Later on, I went on to do engineering. And I saw that there were a lot of very active social clubs. You know, so if you see, typically when youngsters are talked about, or when there's a presentation given to youngsters, it is assumed that youngsters are typically not interested in doing things like this. But I kind of made a rough study, you know, by visiting various colleges and, you know, talking to them. And of course, I was Jagore co-ordinator for getting people registered as voters and helping them make an informed choice. And all of this while I went to these colleges, I saw that a lot of people are really very socially active. Huh? They know what's going on. They're not as dumb as most of our, you know, our seniors feel, so to say. So whenever young people are talked about in any discourse, we are chided for being a nikamma generation, for a generation that doesn't care. I don't think we as young people, being young myself, you know, I don't think we as young people are any less patriotic than any other generation. But the problem is, we as young people would put our time, money and efforts into something that gives results. Where we are not getting results, we don't want to spend the time, money, energy, effort. Nahi karna hai. If you're not going to get results, why are we going to do it? And unfortunately, right now, we do everything that gives us results, except the fundamental thing which we've forgotten, which is governance. Because we're convinced no matter what we do, things aren't going to change. So if things aren't going to change, why do something about it? And this is this fundamental mindset that we have, anything that goes around the place. So anyways, this is sort of a background. Let's jump into the topic. How do we solve a problem? Shama madam here is like my godmother, so to say. I joined all this activism when I was just 18. This was my first year engineering then. And subsequent to all of that, I've still been in all of this. So typically, how do you solve a problem? Now, very interestingly, you know, when I first joined this so-called activist bandwagon, and I would go to these meetings, I would see the same faces around the place. They're just 20 odd people. So there's a meeting about the Meethi River. There are 20 odd people, there's Shama madam there and a few more people around. There's a meeting about save the metro. They're again the same people. There's a meeting about save the road. The same people. They don't know people around. So then I started to kind of ask myself the question, okay, how exactly do people go about solving these problems? You know, it's interesting. Activists around the place, and I've worked with activists, all of them seniors. I was the youngest person around, and sometimes, you know, I wouldn't even be taken seriously. And I went on to the extent of saying that, you know, maybe I should dye my hair a little. You know, people dyed the other way around. Maybe I should put a little bit, the Indira Gandhi Safed streak, so to say. Suddenly I'll be taken seriously. But all of this, so I genuinely asked the question as to, how do you solve a problem in the city? So I asked a few activists, how do you solve a problem? So all of these activists have done really a lot of grassroots work. They tell me, okay, like let's take an example. There is a pothole on the road. Okay, the road was just built like a month ago. So all of us are irritated. Okay, we need some accountability. The road's not good. How do we solve the road issue? So you'll file an RTI. Large number of people feel RTI is a panacea. यहाँ पे ये हुआ RTI फाइल करो, वहाँ पे ये हुआ RTI फाइल करो, यहाँ पे ये हुआ RTI फाइल करो, सब कुछ RTI फाइल करो. That's supposed to be the beginning of the so-called algorithm of solving the problem. Okay, RTI file karo, good. But my question is, my fundamental point that I'm trying to make here is, RTI is a tool. It is A great tool. It is the only powerful tool we have right now to combat the system. One of the only, rather. But it is a tool. We need to understand the limitation of the RTI Act. The other day, I was moving around the place for a similar session like this, and I was talking on young youth involvement in governance, and somebody comes up to me and shows me a card, and I'm like, okay. And the card read RTI Professional. So I look up to him and I ask, what is it that you exactly do? So he says, no, I consult people in filing RTIs. And he was very, proud about the fact that he did it. And I said, look, RTI was never meant to be, you had professionals helping people do this and etc. It was meant to be a tool which common people can use, not to be some sort of an archaic law that you need a lawyer to interpret. So first thing, you file an RTI. Second thing, a few years ago, I bumped into a gentleman in JVPD. JVPD, if you know, is very parochial. The next Malabar Hill, the Malabar Hill of the suburbs, so to say, Juhu. I live just on the border, don't live in JVPD, just outside it. And I asked him, what are you doing these days? He was an activist and he said, I file PILs. So I asked him, okay, but then there's an issue. There's an issue there. Yeah, I filed PIL for that too. And then while we were having a discussion, somebody else came to him and said, we don't really get water supply in our building. Why don't you file a PIL? I'll help you file a PIL. So every issue, what he does is files PILs. And you see the number of PILs that are piling in courts. So first thing, RTI. Second thing, you file a PIL, you get some court judgment. And a lot of our activist friends, so to say, they do a lot of work. I have enormous respect. I'm one of them at the end of it, at the end of the day. They do a lot of work, but typically you get a court order, you're very happy about it. Let me give you a simple example. Court orders are not implemented. Supreme Court judgment, the best Supreme Court judgment on no cooking on the road. Show me even a single street in Mumbai where it has been implemented. Problem is not solved. Look, lot has happened. Huh? People have filed an RTI, people have filed a PIL, people are subsequently follow up. The next thing is follow up with the officer concerned. So, people will go to Mumbai Municipal Corporation and there'll be a Jan Darbar and the municipal commissioner will be sitting here and a large number of people will show, Hare, humne RTI file kiya, ye kiya, wo kiya. They'll show a map, they'll show a few photographs. And activists these days are that armed with a camera. You have a camera too? See, you don't have a camera. Others do. They have a digital camera, just click a picture and, mentally you're all set. Your eyes are trained to just go walk into a lane and that, oh, that drain is not fine and that road is a pothole. But my fundamental issue is the problem is not solved. Problem is not solved. You filed a PIL, you filed an RTI, you went. Problem is not solved. How do you solve a problem? So fundamentally, you solve a problem by getting the government accountable, at least as related to a government-related problem. So you solve a problem by collective informed assertion. Now, what is this collective informed assertion? I'll give you 3 examples of this problem-solving issue. The first problem that I ever solved in my life as an activist was in my lane when there was a garbage bin at the end of it. It didn't exist as kids, but then suddenly it was there. So I asked my mom, it wasn't there around, what happened? So I filed an RTI and I got a reply to it. And the reply very clearly stated that the garbage bin wasn't always there. It was outside the MLA's house. The MLA won the election. That was his office there. And he didn't really want a lot of gandagi, so to say. So the bin was shifted to the Irla market. So, that didn't really make sense in subsequent to that. So the first part, informed. So I tried to get information. Okay, there is a problem. I recognize the problem. I tried to get information about the problem. Okay. Collective. Single-handedly, when I went and made a complaint that, look, there is a bin there, something needs to be done, nothing happened. Nothing happened to my letter. The first letter went after 1 month, there was a reminder that went after 2 months, there were 2 reminders that went. Nothing happened. So, what did I do? Or what are we supposed to do? Collective. It's not just about a single issue, it's not about your personal issue. It's an issue which affects everybody. So I started a simple signature campaign of all the people in the area saying, there's a garbage bin. That garbage bin doesn't have any business to be there. Okay. There's a garbage pickup vehicle which is supposed to come. All of you all sign something and let's do something about it. So, we got about 1,000 signatures for all the people in the area, went around there, made some noise, went ultimately. Collective informed assertion. We are not Maoists. No? We can't take a gun in our hand and just shoot anybody just because we feel that ours is the right argument. So there are limitations to what we can do. Collective informed assertion, we did that simple thing, and we got the garbage bin removed. My first particular problem that we solved in that area. And I don't think I did it. Maybe, yes, true, I took an initiative in doing it. But yes, people joined me on the way. Second, then first garbage bin, simple issue, a little complicated issue, the zero tolerance campaign. Recently, there was a murder of Keenan and Ruben, the other Ruben. A lot of people thought I had died. And people were also happy. But again, jokes apart, the tragedy was such that at one hand, you had two young people doing something that any group of young people would do after a cricket match. And two people were killed just because somebody thought somebody could get away with the act of sexual harassment. And at Yuva, Satta, a group of young people where we just generally meet to discuss issues like this, we said that this is not done. Because there was a lot of justice for Keenan and Ruben campaign, and we said that justice ultimately will be done because it's an open and shut case. It's not about justice being denied. It's about sexual harassment. So we identified a problem. That okay, it's about sexual harassment, which is the pink elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. Every young woman, or rather every girl or woman has experienced it in some form or the other at some point in time. And if this is the proportion of the problem, then why don't we do something about it? So we did our research. We tried to see what exactly the problem is. So we sought the information. We saw that there are two sections of the IPC. There is 509, there is 354. 509 is an NC. For all those of you all who don't know what an NC is, it's non-cognizable. It doesn't even come on your record. That's about a verbal assault on a woman's modesty, so to say. You know, the chhed chani, typical Hindi, to put it in. Or 354, which is physical sexual harassment. And both these sections, 509 was non-cognizable, 354 was cognizable but bailable. So as soon as somebody was arrested, you would go to the police station and within 1,000, you just give 1,200 rupees and it's over. You can just walk out. That's the price, literally, to sexually harass a woman, and that's the saddest part. So all of us got together. So first part, we got our information correct. We tried to formulate a solution, and collectively, for the first time in recent memory, we actually had a debate on sexual harassment. All newspapers were forced to pick it up. Every media channel debated the issue. We saw such heightened issues of awareness, and ultimately we got the Home Minister Maharashtra to make a statement in the House, pass a resolution in the House that both 509 and 354 should be made non-bailable and non-cognizable. We got it done. People came together. We got 1 lakh signatures. People signed for it. It could be done. We did it. Of course, results are not that soon everywhere. So second, zero tolerance campaign. We did that. Third, India against corruption. I would not go into the Lokpal. I think we've gone into the Lokpal overdrive. There's so much of information that I don't want to repeat myself. But all I'm trying to say is India against corruption is not an outcome of something that just happened yesterday. That, Anna just came and, suddenly people just showed up on the street. No. The first event that we organized in Mumbai, when we first, with the Dandi March with Shama Madam there, she was kind enough to help us with the permissions. First time, there were just 5 people who showed up on my terrace. That's the first India against corruption event in Mumbai. We called, of course, everyone on the Facebook page and everything, but 5 people showed up. And at that point of time, we didn't even know. And this was in March, 26th March, and we met somewhere in February. And nobody knew where's this movement going to go to. But the point is, those 5 people believed in what they're doing. They had got their research correct, and they said, why not? Why not? Let's take this issue to the people. And I think the rest is history. And each time subsequent to that, Anna sat on the fast, and we organized things in Mumbai. Please, things in Mumbai are extremely organic. We aren't gods that we created things. But of course, yes, we did strategize things. We did try to give direction to the entire movement so that it largely remains non-violent and its sanctity is preserved. But again, people there took initiative. And people there took initiative after they understood what they had to do and what the problem at hand was. So all I'm trying to say is when you go out there and when you're looking at solutions and when you're looking at a problem, try and understand what the problem is. All of us are I don't believe in karma, so I'm a strong one lifetime guy. I just think all of us have one lifetime, a very little time. Let's optimize all of it. And the best thing that we could do is understand the problem, try and find a solution, and then get people together to work for it. And the strongest impediment in all of this is that when it comes to governance, politics, administration, and things like this, like the Lokpal bill right now, these things are not tangible. It's not the smile on the poor girl's face that I teach, or it's not the fact that somebody has a full stomach. These are abstract. This is an idea. But this is an idea that has the power to transform things. And as young people, if we don't vouch for something that's path-breaking, something that's different, who else will? Thank you so much for having listened to me, and I hope that when you actually, live your lives and do whatever you're doing, you go ahead and solve a problem by collective informed assertion. Thank you so much for having listened.